Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Marketing Matchmaker. I am super excited about today's episode. This topic is something that I know so many of you struggle with. And there's a lot of reasons behind it. But I'm talking with Elizabeth Harr, who is a visibility expert. She actually wrote a whole book on this called The Visible Expert Revolution. And we're going to talk all about visibility today. Elizabeth, introduce yourself to the audience, who you are, what you do, who you serve. Give them a little heads up.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I too am very excited to be talking about this. It's near and dear to my heart. But I am a managing partner at a company called Hinge Marketing, and we're based out of DC, but our clients are global. And we work exclusively with professional services firms. And the reason for that is because there's always been a great answer for B2C firms on how to go to market.
Yeah.
There was not an answer for B2B firms and within B2B professional services on how do I sell services? I don't have a widget. And more than that, I've got a very sophisticated audience I'm selling to. So that's who we work with. And we formed Hinge to answer that question.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And it's so true. While most of my audience and a lot of my clients are B2C, the biggest problem in the B2B and B2C world, honestly, is visibility because in the digital world, that's really what matters. People have to know you exist, especially for those people that are looking to get outside of like their local market. So, your book, The Visible Expert, is all about that. So, for people that are unfamiliar with the whole concept, can you kind of explain what the visible expert is, what you mean by that, and really why it's so important?
Yeah. So the way we define a visible expert is a professional who has two things. Number one, expertise in whatever it is they do. So expertise in their lane and visibility for that expertise. So there's lots of experts out there who know a lot of things about what they do, but nobody knows them. They're still the best kept secret. And that's not a visible expert. That's just an expert. So a visible expert has those two special ingredients, if you will, and that's
Yeah.
what makes them so powerful.
And in today's world, why is that more important now than ever?
Well, I'm glad that you said what you said about the B2C community because in my opening, I said it used to be that they had a good answer to how they should market. And now to the point you were sort of making, the marketplace is so crowded. And
Yeah.
since we're all competing in a digital environment, there's a lot of lookalikes. So now the customer or the client has to sift through all of that. What are they looking for? Well, they're looking for the leaders, the top, the experts, if you will. So even in a B2C environment, this being visible for what your audience cares about is everything. And so that's why we coined this phrase, visible expert, because particularly in B2B environments where firms are selling expertise, even if they have a software or a widget or something, they're an expert and their audience wants to align with those experts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is so true. And honestly, in the B2C or B2B market, it's essential that you set yourself up as the expert, but more importantly, that people know that you're
Yes.
the expert, right? Because I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. They build a business, whether they are, a B2B or a B2C, with the idea of, and I always make this joke, it's the field of dreams, right? If I build it, they will come. And that's not just because you're an expert in something. If people don't know you exist, that becomes an issue. So I know in your book you outlined steps for building a really powerful personal brand. So we're obviously not going through the whole book today, but what are some of those key steps that people A struggle with and B are the most important? Like what are those like one or two key steps that they need to be aware of?
Yeah. So the very first thing is to lay a stake in the ground on what your niche area is. And that's very important because there's lots and lots of companies out there with, we can solve all problems, that kind of messaging, and translate that into B2C, like we do all things for all people. That doesn't get you very far. In
Right.
fact, it often makes sure that you are not selected because it's too nebulous for, I don't even know what you do. So why would I select you? Why would I buy from you? So the very first thing to do is just do some soul searching and really put definition around what your niche area is. And how do you do that? Well, you do need to think about what matters to you and what you're passionate about, but think of that and an intersection of the audience you want to serve. What do they care about? When your audience wakes up at 4, I call it the 4 a.m. problem. When they
Right.
wake up at 4 a.m., and we all know we do that, what are they thinking about? What are they trying to solve when it comes to their business? Knowing that is everything because that intersection is an excellent cue for what your lane should be. So that's first and foremost, number one. And then the second thing is study your audience. Learn how these people live, think, and breathe. How do they see the world? Not only what keeps them up at night, but what's their learning behavior when they are seeking solutions to what's keeping them up at night? What's their buying behavior? In other words, what criteria is important to your audience when they're out there looking for a company like you? And I would say those two things will help you set a foundation that is so powerful. And without those, you're just spending money on guesswork, and nobody has time or patience or budget for that.
That is so true. And it's one of the things that I harp on all the time is know your audience, know your message. Like those are the two things that are going to draw your audience in. If they know that, how do they then step into becoming visible with
Yeah.
that information?
So this is where studying your audiences, your specific audience's learning and buying behavior is so critical because visibility has to be where your audience is. And if you don't know where they are learning, then you know, they're not going to know you. So, for example, knowing what your audience does when they are searching. So they might ask their peers, well, who are their peers? In other words, do you, if you, if your clients, maybe you have a software for the legal community. Well, we know that the legal community often asks the accounting community who they use. And so you need to know that because maybe you should be networking with a bunch of accountants and financial services firms so that you can be recommended. Um, Knowing what social media channels they learn in B2C, it's there's several. In B2B, it's kind of narrowed down to LinkedIn. And a lot
Yes.
of companies don't acknowledge that and they just think, well, let's have a great Instagram page. B2B is not there. They're behind the curve. So they're not there looking for someone like you. So knowing the channels, then knowing what messaging, because even though Google and the advent of AI is going to change dramatically the SEO landscape. Still, SEO exists today, and it is a way that companies are found.
Yeah.
And your SEO, the keywords that you are found for, needs to tie to your messaging, which needs to tie to what your audience actually cares about. So that's how you build visibility, is understanding how your audience is learning and then mirror your marketing from the channels to the techniques to the messaging that maps how these folks gather information.
I love that. I love that. And I know, like, for those of you out there that are still trying to figure this out, I also want to reiterate you have to know the channels, like how to talk on LinkedIn versus how to talk on Instagram or YouTube or whatever your drug of choice is when it comes to social media, because it often becomes that. Um, the the world in itself in the last 2 to 4 years, actually, I guess since COVID, let's be honest, since COVID, the world has just kind of pivoted so much more online. than it was pre-COVID. So, with the changes that have happened, what strategies do you have or suggest to really help them build their online presence
Yeah.
even deeper?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. First and foremost, understand that your website should be treated and invested in as your highest performing business development asset. It is the only thing that's going to work 24/7, that doesn't care about geographical boundaries, and it is your front door to your business. So treat it that way. Don't have Uncle Bob's cousin in the basement do your website. It doesn't
Absolutely.
work. And invest in it as your primary BD tool. What does that mean? It means make sure that the experience you want your clients and customers to have is reflected in the website. If a prospective client got referred to you, even if that referral said, "Oh, you have to meet so and so, they're the best thing since sliced bread," don't even consider anybody else. They're going to go to your website first.
Absolutely.
And if your website has generic copy, they can't understand what you do, uh, dated imagery, subliminally, you're sending the message that, it might be kind of a dated experience working with us.
Yeah.
So you really have to understand how important the website is, and that is a tool that needs to be prioritized. Um, Now, then it's okay. Well, like you said earlier, well, if you build your website, are people just going to magically know you? Absolutely not. So, what do you do with your website? Well, it's very important to, like I mentioned earlier, understand what your audience cares about so that you can write about those things.
Yeah.
It not only needs to be reflected in your messaging, and that's more of the marketing side of it, but you also need to prove you are the expert and the leader they're looking for. How do you do that? Through blogs, articles, open access things that need only take a minute or so of someone's time to scan through. But if you don't have that, there's no chance of your website being found unless someone knows your name. And you can't rely on that. The visibility is all about being found as the problem solver.
Right.
So we really need to think about content that you author that can be keyword rich, that shows up in search when your audience is saying, I have got to find an answer to this thing that's keeping up. Let me do some searching and see who comes up.
I love that. I love that because one of the things that you said was outdated. And I always attribute websites for those of you that are kind of like houses, right? You're driving down a neighborhood, you can definitely see the house that was built in 1970 versus the house that was built in the last decade. There are massive differences. So if you haven't yet updated your website, if it is a decade old, it might be time to reach out to somebody to get
Absolutely.
that kind of increased because it's your business card, it's your calling card. It is the first thing that people that and your social media platforms are the two places that people are going to look for you first and foremost. How do those clients, potential clients out there in my audience that are B2B or and looking to really build their brand, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn. Speaking of LinkedIn, it's E Harr, Harr. And also, you can go to hingemarketing.com. And I am on our website, but also, maybe more importantly than me, is a bunch of free information on personal branding and how to build it, and a step-by-step guide. So it's free. Why not take advantage of it?
Perfect. For those of you out there that are struggling with your branding, I will tell you branding is one of the most important parts of your marketing because as much as you would like for you to tell people what your brand is, the truth is the brand is what they think it is. So you need to make sure that you have your brand start to finish completely in line so that when people come to see you, they know exactly who you are, what you do, and who you serve. So if you're struggling with your brand or just maybe need some advice, head over to hingemarketing.com and chat with Liz or somebody else on the team or tap into their resources. I will have all of those links in the show notes. Thank you so much, Liz, for being on today. I love talking about visibility and people's brands, really trying to help them dial that in. Do you have any last words, tips, anything that you would like the audience to know?
Well, I would say when you are visible, you can actually spend less money and less time on marketing. It does not have to be an extraordinarily expensive and time-consuming effort. Visibility is the key to marketing smarter, being smarter about your budget and your time. So learn about it and just think visibility as your key to doing your planning in the 2025 and beyond.
I love that. Thank you so much for being on. And for those of you that are struggling with your marketing overall, you're not sure what to do first or next to really help you to grow your business, head over to yourmarketingmatchmaker.com and sign up for a free 30-minute strategy session. I promise you'll leave with at least one actionable item that will help you to grow your business, increase your revenue, and scale your impact. Until next time, make sure you're visible. Thank you for listening to the Marketing Matchmaker podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love to hear your feedback. Please head over to Apple iTunes and leave a review so we can hear from you. And if you are a coach, consultant, or online course creator who are looking to grow your business, increase your income, and scale your impact, connect with me at yourmarketingmatchmaker.com. I look forward to hearing from you.